Hey everybody, this is Stu Smith, and today I'm going to tell you a story. And it is my story. It's my journey from young high school kid to where I am now. And I grew up in a little small town in Florida, Live Oak, Florida, Swanee County. Worked hard, had a great family life. My parents were awesome, gave me everything that I needed. Notice I said not everything I wanted. If I wanted anything, I had to work and pay for it myself. I had a couple jobs and working on farms and landscaping, things like that, mowing neighborhoods, grass, and all of that. So, that was kind of the beginning, and it kind of gave me a good sense of, hey, if I wanted something, I had to work for it, right? And if I wanted to play sports in high school, I needed to get bigger because I was a tiny little kid. And so I started lifting weights. And luckily enough, I was able to make a couple of teams in high school. Actually did pretty well in academics as well. My mom was an English teacher. My dad was a journalist, newspaper publisher. So I guess that's where I come from, the writing side. In fact, I always had two sets of eyes pretty much on anything I ever turned in as far as a written assignment. So I kind of learned how to write, at early age. And just loved playing sports. So that was it. Now I didn't really have a goal set of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to serve in some way. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, all those were floating around, and those were options that I was thinking about. Now I also was getting some offers from colleges to play sports, and I was getting recruited for football. The fact that Army and Navy were recruiting me at the same time was awesome, because that was kind of everything I wanted to do. I wanted to go serve. I wanted to play a sport in college, wanted to pay for college so my parents didn't have to. So it was kind of like the perfect goal set right there. And so it was either Army or Navy. I actually chose Navy, as you guys know. Long story on that one. Get to that one another day. But anyway, I had no idea at the time the impact that this would have on me. The only problem is when I showed up there for my first fitness test at the Naval Academy, I failed it. Bombed the sit-ups. Did okay on the run, did okay on the push-ups, but failed the sit-ups. Why? Well, you look at the standards when you're 18 years old and you say, oh yeah, I can do that. Well, I should have practiced more sit-ups, basically, because the second time I took the test, a few months later, I maxed it. So that's because I practiced sit-ups, right? So a little bit of hard work there, was able to handle that failure. Not a big deal, but the failures kept on coming. Chemistry, calculus, right? Some other difficult classes, not doing so well. So had to get some study help. Then, being a stupid 18-year-old kid who thinks he's at a regular college, I get in trouble for underage drinking. So now I can't leave the weekends at all. And I'm marching tours, or hadn't quite gotten to the point of shoveling snow yet, but that was the next step, during December, January, got to shovel snow for that stupid one. But anyway, I finally got to go home for Thanksgiving, and I show up pretty beat down because I have pretty much failed at everything. I have failed physically, hadn't passed the test yet. I had failed academically in a couple courses, which you fail at one, you're failed. You have to go through academic boards, and either you are going to be able to be retained or kicked out, and then failing militarily. Right, I didn't have the discipline enough to be there and not break the rules. So going home with that was pretty humbling, right? But I probably deserved it. I needed it. I needed to be kicked in the butt and humbled a bit, because I was a cocky little 18-year-old that never failed at anything and was crushing things. So I'm sitting there crying to my mom, and rest in peace, my mom. And this is where things kind of turned around. This little conversation that I had with my mom, I won't ever forget it, because it means a lot to me. Because I was crying, just telling them I missed them, doing horribly. And she goes, well, why don't you just come home and quit? Why are you doing this to yourself? And I just looked at her and said, I can't quit. And she said, then quit crying and go back up there and start working hard. I was like, okay, well then, I will do that, right? Didn't really have a plan, but I just had a different mindset. I knew I couldn't quit. I knew I couldn't come back home and have that big failure on me. I just knew I couldn't do that. So I was going to give it 110% and figure this out. So luckily, found a good mentor, showed me how to ace fitness tests. He later on became a SEAL as well, a couple years older than me. And then academically, study skills, learned how to study for college, helped tremendously. In fact, in a course of about 6 weeks, from end of Thanksgiving to into finals, I was able to turn things around to where I wasn't failing anything and wasn't even near failing anything. So that was a big boost. And I was kind of pumped up about that. Started figuring this whole thing out. And actually I was got squared away to a point where I was ranked #1 in my entire company for military grades, military bearing, which was, I don't know if that was something. I mean, people thought highly of me, I guess, enough to give me that ranking. But, one semester I was ranked pretty bad, and the other semester I was ranked #1. So, and I didn't change anything. So I didn't understand the ranking. So they're kind of subjective. But regardless, I figured it out, right? Because here's my big thing is I busted my butt to get to the Naval Academy. Right? Many of us bust our butts to get to something, but we never think about how we're going to get through things, right? And types of questions I should have been asking was, how much do you think I need to study to make it through the Naval Academy? What are some things that I could do to be prepared for what's coming, during plebe summer or my first year? Right. I didn't do any of that. And I had access to people that knew those answers. And unfortunately, I didn't worry about it. I was like, oh, man, I'm solid. So the preparation never stops. And that's why I kind of break up in a lot of my thinking and programming is you got to get to the training first. Right. And then you got to focus on getting through the training, because a lot of people get to the training, but not so many people get through the training. So that's a really important part there. So let me fast forward just a little bit. And, I played sports. I didn't play football. That was another failure. Didn't make the team, actually, even though I was recruited. Wound up finding rugby. Loved it. Played the rest 3.5 years there at Navy, and it was probably my saving grace. Absolutely was so much fun. Probably made me a little tougher. In fact, it gave me lifelong friends that were still buddies, and many of them became SEALs. In fact, we had 4 guys on the rugby team that made it through SEAL training that year. That was awesome. I mean, we were a tough group, and we would work out in the mornings for PT and running, and then we go rugby practice in the afternoon, and then on the way back to the barracks, we would, or to the dorm, we would go and swim. So it was a constant workout. And then after swimming, we'd go eat and go study. So we figured things out. We figured out a way to make it through this place. And, largely I figured out by, joining people like that, that were that motivated. So that was very helpful. So, my thing is find people who are like-minded if you can. That's a big, big help. If you don't have that, you're probably going to wind up being even tougher, because it is even harder to do that all on your own. And, I probably did it on my own for a little while. But once I had other people to do it with and hold me accountable and hold them accountable, we became a pretty good team and moved through that process the next 4 years. So fast forward a little more, we're all at Buds now. And, that once again was a kick in the nuts, just like it is advertised. No one ever just crushes Buds. There's always something that crushes you. You might do well at something like swimming, but running's going to suck. Or you might do really well at the PT, but being under a log in a boat's going to suck. It's going to suck no matter what, even if you're good at it. Even if you're good at running still sucks, the level you do it. And you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be wet and sandy and cold and kind of miserable and uncomfortable. And you're going to be, sitting in the water, pitch black, just doing night swims. Those kind of little boogeyman swims, we call them. So a lot of little things there that make a lot of people leave. Luckily by then, I think I was so used to getting my butt kicked from 4 years at the academy that, be honest with you, I'd rather do Buds again than 4 years of the Naval Academy. 4 years of Naval Academy really humbled me to a point of where, I realized that, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the most fit guy in the room. And if I'm going to be able to even just sit in this room, I'm going to have to work a lot harder. And that was a good realization for me. And, very grateful for that growing experience. So what's next? After that, I'd been busting my butt pretty hard for, if you think about the timeline now, I was about 22, graduated Buds. I was at the SEAL team and just kept on going hard. And, physically, I was pushing, basically burning a candle at both ends. We were working hard, we're playing hard, I'm constantly running, I'm lifting, I'm calisthenics. I didn't really have a system. And to be honest with you, by the time 28, 29, 30 came around, I was starting to break. Things just hurt. Things that I just thought I was getting old because I was 30, they were hurting. And now, fast forward 20 years, I know that was really wrong. I'm 50 years old and feel better than I did at 30. So that tells you a little bit about it. And I still get after it. I just get after it a lot smarter. And that's when I created that periodization program where I actually break down the 4 seasons of the year into different training blocks. So that now creates a program for me to handle all the elements of fitness in a given year, spread throughout, 4, sometimes 5 different cycles, depending on what I need to work on the most. So in the spring, I'm working on a running progression and high rep calisthenics progression. By the summer, we're kind of peaking in that progression. A lot of running, a lot of calisthenics, a little bit of supplemental lifting. And then in the fall, we drop it down and we're not running as much. We're not doing high rep calisthenics as much. Warming up with calisthenics, but now adding lifts onto the back end of that. Instead of running so much, we put a little more non-impact activity into it, working more with swimming, even doing non-impact activity like biking and elliptical, stuff like that. Just give the joints a break. Then in the winter, it's a pure lift cycle. Put on some mass and come back around to the spring and start taking it off. Now, believe it or not, in the teams, that was actually a pretty good idea to put on some mass in the winter, especially cold water diving in the Atlantic and the Pacific too. So putting on some mass in the winter actually made a lot of tactical sense. So that was my first introduction to what periodization really was. And then after some studying, I kind of created this system that allowed me as a tactical athlete and then more of a coach, because I went back to the academy and became an instructor there, and ran the SEAL program as well as the remedial programs for people failing swimming and failing the PT test. And to be honest with you, I kind of found a home. I enjoyed that. I found both ends of the spectrum, coaching people very rewarding, to a point of where I wanted to do that as my profession. And I only did 8 years in the Navy, as in the SEAL teams, and a couple of those years were back at the academy. So my SEAL experience is rather limited. My coaching experience is a lot better than my tactical prowess, for sure. So I tend to focus on, training people to get through their tactical professions, whatever those are. Typically, to train to get to something, you have to master a fitness test. To get through something, you have a boot camp, a basic training, an academy. You have a selection program. All of those need to have a specific training program personalized for that individual, as well as the actual events of that selection. And you'll do well. That's how you get through the training, is prepare to get through the training by doing some of those events of the training itself. And you can simulate some of the things that are hard to do, like log PT and things like that, which, we've got a bunch of different workouts like that. So that is kind of how I evolved into what I do now. And I guess with, the fact that I'm making a video of it, kind of also evolved with technology, social media, and internet, and all of that has had to require some extra education and open-mindedness to sharing the word out here. And hopefully, with this, this video, kind of give you an idea of who I am and how I got here. If you have questions, you can always contact me. My email is in the description. You can also find me on Instagram and this YouTube channel, as well as some of the places you can find podcasts. We have a podcast called the Tactical Fitness Report, where I and guests, and Jeff Nichols is a very common guest. We usually do something and discuss all the elements of fitness and how it works into a tactical profession. So, yeah. So this is my true calling. I love doing it. I love helping young men and women, especially tactical athletes, and tactical athletes over 40 now. Some of the people that started with me when they were 20 are now in their 40s. And there's a whole list of different issues that we're going through, post 20-year career. But this is what I do. And so anyway, what I'd like for you to take away from all of this is, no matter what your goals are, if you really want to do anything, you got to find a why, got to work hard, you got to accept the failures as learning experiences, and move on and refocus and energize, to get finished. And but you also have to grow and evolve, and that's how it works. Never let the grass grow under your feet. Just keep moving. So I hope this story was something maybe new for you and not too long, but give me some questions if you have any. Maybe I can help you along your journey as well. We'll see you later.